I'm going to resume the recording and I'm going to start officially. So yeah, here we go. So thank you for joining us. That so many of you arrived on such a gorgeous Thursday evening that I'm delighted. Um, Multi-pin, I think, where are you? I'm just going to go back for a bit of housekeeping. Uh, Caitlin, could you assist Kate, please? Sorry. Um, we Thank you for joining us, as I say. We wanted to highlight what we actually think is a really important show that's on in Swansea at the moment. I don't know if all of you will be able to come and see it, but it's on until the 14th of June. And so I've invited the curator and the artist to talk a little bit more about the exhibition themes and objectives. So Evil Eyes, Protected by Veils is a solo presentation by Rubbena and has been very especially curated at the invitation of GS artists by Caitlin Davies. We will be publishing an editorial catalogue at a later date and we'll distribute that via our website, and we're very excited about that. So to introduce them both a bit, Rubbena lives and works in London. Obviously, she's an artist and is exhibited widely across the UK, USA, Canada, France, Sweden, and South Korea. I say she's also an artist because, as well as that, she's worked as an art psychodynamic psychotherapist since 2005, as well as being an incredible long-standing activist. And she's campaigned for the rights of marginalized deaf ethnic women through Ethnic Women's Association, and also established the Deaf Visual Artists UK in 2020 to provide a safe and supportive space for deaf artists to nurture their personal and professional development. I know they just had a weekend retreat last weekend, which was an amazing success. So I know that many of you went to that. So that's incredible. Caitlin Davies is a curator and facilitator from Port Talbot. Her curatorial practice focuses on access and collaboration and working with artists in a non-hierarchical way. And she aims to push the artist's ideas and voice forward. She's currently working at G39 as a public programme and has curated exhibitions in Chapter Arts Centre, Mission Gallery, as well as pop-up exhibitions across South Wales. So after we've heard from both the artist and curator, we'll be opening out to the audience for questions. I would ask you to either put the questions into the chat or identify yourself if you want to ask them yourself or in VSL. I'm going to switch my camera off now and hopefully ask Rubbena and Caitlin to start.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming. I don't know what to say now after Jane introduced me so nicely, but I'm Caitlin Davies. I was the curator on this project. My pronouns are she, her, and a little audio description. I am a white woman in her late 20s. I've got sort of dark brown, grey and curly hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt jumpsuit type thing. I'm in an office. So there's sort of white walls behind me and a very messy bookshelf that I'm now not going to take my eyes off. So yeah, as Jane sort of said, she invited me onto this project to work with Rubbena. We've been working on it for about a year, so I'm really excited that it's finally up and people can see it. I hope seeing the images at the start help to give a bit of context to what we're going to talk about today, if you haven't seen the show. But yeah, I think tonight we just want to get into a little bit of the sort of the specifics of the exhibition. This is something like there's some new stuff in there for Rubbena that she's not worked on before. So yeah, we're gonna start with that, and I'm gonna hand over to Rubbena to introduce herself, and then I'll start with some questions.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rubbena. I know that Jane has introduced me a little bit already, but my sign name is Rubbena, like this, and that's basically because I have very long black hair, which is in a plait, which I'm showing you right now, the total length of my hair. I'm wearing a black top, and I also have glasses. I'm actually in a hotel room at the moment. So just to explain a little bit generally about this work that is the new exhibition, it actually consists of some of my old work, some new elements as well, and some installation. So there's a few different things within the gallery room. There's audiogram pictures and some sound as well, and there are some veils as part of the installation.
Thanks, Rubbena. I just wanted to start with the first question, I guess, is can you tell us all what an audiogram is? Obviously, I know now because I've been working with you for a year, but maybe some people wouldn't know what exactly that means. So yeah, if you can explain that, that would be amazing.
Interesting, because I just assume that everybody knows what it is. Because for my whole life, it's been something that's a feature of my whole life. But I guess there has to be a process that some people go through to understand what is an audiogram, and not actually that everybody knows what it is. So an audiogram is like a graph, basically. So on the one side, you've got a decibel, a range of decibels, and then across, so that's going up, and then across you've got frequencies. So when a deaf person or somebody goes for a test of their hearing or what levels they can actually hear, most hearing people can have that as well. So there's about 20% of people really hearing people who might experience hearing loss. So what they can hear would be up at the top. So what deaf people like me maybe could hear would be at the bottom of this graph. So it basically reflects it's a visual representation of sounds someone can hear and where their hearing loss might lie.
Amazing. Thank you, Rubbena. The next question I wanted to ask is, there are some sort of new elements in this work, and the ways you've worked in the ways you work have changed slightly as well. Can you talk about why you wanted to work specifically with sound and animation, which you hadn't worked with before?
So really, with the concept of the audiogram, I wanted to kind of have a sense of the differences between what I can hear on the right and on the left. Sorry, I'm just interpreted. Oh, sorry, let's just go back. Okay. So talking about the new elements and as part of the installation. So really with an audiogram, really that's a new thing that I've not used in my work before. It's been part of my life, but I really wanted to reflect that. It's almost the kind of what happens on the left and what happens on the right are two different things. And I don't necessarily know that people know that. So, you know, a medical person is going to kind of look at that and understand it. But what is in the installation as well is some textured pieces on the floor, and they kind of represent what I maybe can't hear, things like white noise. So you'll see in the pictures I've got kind of there's blue pictures on one side and red on the other, and there's also things like images, like things like tap that I can't necessarily hear, and words as well on the pictures. But what I wanted to convey is that people can't necessarily know what's going on for me. So you might see an image of signing or something, but what the sound is like as an experience for me, or how that translates, it is quite different, because like you know, I can't even hear what is being projected in the gallery, which is my voice as well. So I really wanted to translate this whole experience into something that's like a poem, and also into BSL. So the animation is a kind of a visual poem, really, about the emotions of my experience, and really, I did want to learn a new skill, and that's what I chose to express this concept through an animation. And I think I actually have a question, Caitlin, that I'd like to ask you, if it's okay, because I'm talking about the exhibition now, and you know, we obviously had a conversation about what was going to be part of this exhibition, and it was you that actually wanted to bring in some of my older works, and I'm curious, why did you want that? What was your thinking behind that?
Thanks, Rubbena. So I think it was really interesting. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about process. I I did a studio visit with Rubbena in January, and I hope you don't mind me saying, Rubbena, but you moved studios recently in the last year, but also now lots of your artwork is in a very big storage space.
That's right in the middle of the whole project. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah. So lots of your work ended up having to go into storage. So we basically went to the storage space and just started pulling out paintings. And I realised you collected a lot of your work from over the years, and some artists don't do that. So I was so excited. I was like a kid in a candy shop, like pull this one out because there's so many different colours in your work that I was a bit like, oh, let's pull this one out and that one out. So I think I got really excited there, firstly, and then we. I was just thinking about you as an artist and how, and we've talked about this quite a lot. This is your first solo show in the UK. You have been practicing for over 30 years. And I just got a bit sad about the fact that no one was seeing this work in the UK, maybe. So actually, two of the paintings I chose were made for a show in America, where you did have a solo show because deaf culture feels to be a little bit more prevalent in America, but let me know if I'm wrong about that. Um, and it just felt really key to me to show a bit of a trajectory, especially with, as Jane said at the start, we're making a catalogue alongside this work. And the hope is for Rubbena to be able to send this out easily. It's a digital catalogue, to be able to send this out easily to artists and curators, to basically show what she can do. Rubbena works in a lot of different fields, again, as Jane mentioned in the start. And I am really keen to make sure she's seen as an artist almost first, even though that's maybe not quite right. But I think it was so a massive part of this exhibition was getting Rubbena to be in the forefront of something. Rubbena, as lots of you actually know in this chat, because I know she's supported a lot of you, is an amazing support within the deaf community. And she does lots of training, she does lots of workshops, she works with lots of artists, but it's not particularly often that she's the main one we're all looking at. And I know that took a bit of time actually with you, Rubbena. But yeah, so I think for me it was just about showing that trajectory and that you've been making work this important for years, for over 30 years, but it hasn't been shown in maybe the way it should have. Yeah, so I think that's why I wanted to do that. And I'm gonna throw a question back at you now, Rubbena, if that's okay. So in the front of the gallery space, there's a set of 8 paintings that are signs, BSL signs, signing questions: who, what, when, where, why, you, etc. How, I've missed some. But I wondered, Rubbena, if you could talk a little bit about why you wanted to include those words specifically. Yeah.
Sure. I think at the time that I chose the words, I perhaps didn't realise why I chose them, but because, as you said, this exhibition was really about me. It's rare that I have time to think and reflect on who I am and all these things. And there was just lots of questions within that, the why, the where, the what questions. And I think even this goes back to my childhood. I would always ask people, why this? Why that? What's going on? I always wanted information because I'm deaf, and I really feel that I always have to ask because I didn't have that access. And still now, I think I ask lots of questions. I think it actually annoys people. I mean, I certainly remember my family being annoyed when I'd say, why do we have to wash this? Or why do we have to go to work? And I think they found it quite annoying. But for me, it's become part of my everyday life. So I actually feel that it's really important for me to reflect that, sort of coming off from the audiogram. So there's the things that I can hear, but there's also things about body language and colour that are represented within the works. Everything as well is in there. And it's really like I can't fully hear the sounds. The sounds are there. So the sound in the okay. Yeah. So sorry, just to catch up there. So yeah, that's this what the sound in the room is.
Amazing, thank you. And I just thought of something that we didn't I hadn't actually said before this, and we should have. Another different part of what we included in this show was um, your books, your sketchbooks, that I don't think you've shown before, but correct me if I'm wrong. And we talked about, I mean,
No.
in general, I think we talk a lot about language because me and you have different preferred languages. Um, and also doing something in Wales meant we were thinking about Welsh language a bit as well. So yeah, there was lots of discussion around language and writing. Um, I just want to let everyone know that in the space there's 5 sketchbooks of Rubena's, and Rubena would sort of throughout her day write some things around, and that's actually how we titled the show. Um, we found sort of words and snippets from in there. So if you're in the space, please do have a flick through, like just to see. I mean, there's multiple things. There's lots of writings, but there's also there's also her preparing for this, and you can see the first drawings of what the 8 paintings are, and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're there, please do check that out. Um, but otherwise, Rubena, unless you've got anything else, I think we can open it up to the audience. Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. I just wanted to say it's good that you actually picked up on the sketch book there, because I think people actually, if they don't visit, they won't see them, will they? But I think it's actually good to have brought those into the space, and that's the first time I've actually been asked to sort of to do that and done that. So it's really interesting to be exposing what's going on in my brain in the process of creating and preparing. So yeah, very interesting.
Great. I think, and I always wonder if it's me as a curator because I always love like an artist's process, and almost a bit like it because I want to see it in everything, in every show I could see mostly, but I think it's really interesting as the person you are. I think, and I presume some people in this room might also say this, but I think you're a role model for deaf artists, for Asian artists. So I think if that process comes into it almost feels more tangible. Like in theory, no one knew we were working on this for the first 8 months or whatever, and then we started talking about it really publicly, that it was happening. So it feels like showing that process, I guess, felt really important. But yeah. Okay, does any of the audience have any questions? yeah, as Jane says, you can post in the chat, or please just, as long as be aware that obviously this is being recorded. So if you're happy to be recorded, you can turn on your camera and ask us directly.
I've got a question. I'll just throw it in there. How did it feel, Rubbena, to have the spotlight? Because it was, how did it feel for you?
It was a bit, I felt the pressure really a little bit at first. I did try to kind of run off and hide as often as I could and disappear a little bit from the audience. But I think in private viewings and things like that, I often do try and make myself a little bit invisible. So it was a bit strange, but it was a good opportunity for my work to be there, to see my work there. I've painted for a long time, but not had anywhere to exhibit it. So I do feel that I'm an artist first, and that's always been my first career, and I've never stopped painting. That's always just been part of my life process. So the work does build up, and I never want to throw it away because it's like throwing away a part of myself. So I keep it. It used to really annoy my parents as well. I used to just have so much work, just so much. But that's how I operate. And it's just quite interesting to be in the spotlight. There is a little bit of pressure, but I kind of like that pressure a bit as well. Hello, Emily has a question. So I have a question for you, Rubbena. I think I've known you, and I've been involved in lots and lots of projects that you have done. You talk now about 30 years, but I don't think you've had very many exhibitions. So I know you did something in America recently, but I mean, I do understand that there's barriers for a deaf artist in a hearing world, but are there any other reasons why you haven't exhibited widely? That's just what I'd like to know and like to ask. Thank you. Well, I did my own exhibition in Paris. I paid out of my pocket for that to happen. So I've done that actually twice in France. And I've kind of gone over there and done all the work that needed to happen for that. But it was self-funded, and I have self-funded other exhibitions from time to time. This is back in the days when there was no social media either. So it's kind of, how do you tell people as well? You really need the gallery and galleries to inform their network. That's really important to get the word out. But if you're not known very much, then you don't have that network necessarily to get these opportunities. I have to say, I am really grateful to Jane and Caitlin for giving me the opportunity to focus on art making and exhibiting without worrying about money, basically, or I do think it's a really amazing experience for me to make work, but also to do all the planning and everything like that is a huge thing. So when I look at my CV, there's quite a lot on there, but it's mostly kind of done things that I've done within groups. I haven't actually had a lot of them that have been funded. So that's an extra aspect. And I think this is the first time I've had a fully funded opportunity like this, which makes a big difference. Thank you, Wales, for giving me that opportunity.
I'm just going to ask, Jay sent a couple of questions, but he had to leave. He has given me his email so we can send the recording to him. But the first question, Rubbena, is, as a working class, hard of hearing artist based in Manchester, I truly believe representation is incredibly important. What advice would you give to a deaf or hard of hearing people wanting to make artwork and get out there?
Well, this is why I set up the Deaf Visual Artists UK group, because what I noticed during the lockdown was that deaf artists disappeared again. I think there was a presence before. I mean, maybe we're talking even further back in the 90s. There was an organisation that was set up to support deaf artists. And really, for me, that's how my career came on, is through that. And I started to kind of do stuff that was in the media, on the news, get some coverage. But then it all stopped very abruptly, and funding ran out, and we disappeared as artists, really. And I think over the next sort of 10 years, I was on my own, really, just carrying on working. But through the lockdown, I started to see artists really just not having any kind of presence. And this is why we set up DVA UK, to give people a chance to come together, to talk, and to really interact. We set up a closed group, which gave people the opportunity to ask questions and get advice. People wanted mentoring. People needed to see role models. People wanted to know about opportunities that were going on. So it was really an opportunity for us to really get together and be a supportive network. And I know that you said, Jay, that you're hard of hearing, but and then obviously maybe as a sign language majority using group, that can be difficult. But we really started to use captioning and interpreters in our meetings, so they were accessible for all deaf people. So some people actually have learned sign language as a result of being part of the group and seeing it, but it's really important that we have a space to come together, and that's what it is.
Great. Jay's second question was, and how, as a deaf, hard of hearing individual, can you create or find a deaf or hard of hearing artist community? And you've made it. You know, I mean, I know he's based in Manchester. He's done a trip to Cardiff with me once. So that was the first time we met. But yeah, I can tell him now. I didn't have his email before, so I can tell him now about DVA UK. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah. So somebody's come up there. This is Alex. Can you see the interpreter, Alex? Yeah. Okay. Just setting myself up. Okay. So just setting my camera up there, Alex says. Okay. So I was just wondering about colour. So colour in your work. So where do you kind of research or get your concepts and ideas from? Okay, so for lots of people, I think they hate bright colours. I think they come across as being too loud for some people. But yeah, I can't hear. So yes, they're a representation of sound for me and my emotion and my language. And this is why colour is really important. So an audiogram doesn't have any colour usually. They might have some little red dots. Some of you might know if you have one or seen one. But what you see in the exhibition is big bold colour alongside the audiogram, because that is what I hear, really, is big bold colours. Thank you.
And Emily just asked in the chat, what made you fixed to oil paint?
Okay. So I started my career in abstract art. So, and then I was given some oil paints, and I thought, okay, because I really wanted to learn about what abstract was and what it meant. So I was asked to use some oil paints, and I thought, yeah, okay. I didn't really know what they were or what they do. And I didn't know how long they took to dry either. I was pretty clueless about all those kind of things. But straight away, I went on to a 7-foot canvas, nothing small. I went and got hold of a 7-foot canvas, and I just thought, why not? So I started working with the oil paints, and I just felt the strength and the intensity of the colour and the movement, the freedom of movement that you have working with that medium. Acrylic paint, it dries really quick. So it's not flexible, but it's natural looking. But sorry, it's not flexible. But for me, oil feels a lot more natural and gives me that control over what I'm creating. And I just feel a huge amount of pleasure when I'm working with it. I feel hungry to do more. And so I've stuck with oil paint ever since. There's the rules of colour, I think, that isn't great is that a colour like red, for example, takes 3 months to even get dry. Blue, a little bit quicker, but these are all considerations that you have to bear in mind when you're working with oils.
No, we had to give Rubbena a deadline of like January to finish painting, so we could make sure it was dry to get it in the van to get it to Swansea. So we were all doing a bit of mental maths, trying to figure out when it needed to be done. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay.
So there's Simon.
Hello, yeah. I want to say, you prefer oil painting, but I prefer acrylic.
So you prefer oil, I love acrylic.
Be honest, I mean, a lot of people can't wait 3 months for it to dry. They want it to be quick, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm
It's
here
painful, the waiting, painful.
quick, person. Now, why? Because I spend people work advertising graphics, you always do things quickly.
So I've worked in advertising and graphics, and things have to be quick. That's why I like a quick drying paint.
Quick.
So I've always used something that dries quickly because I can't wait all that time for it to dry. I have tried oils before, but it made me kind of, muddy. It was muddy, and I felt I don't know, I didn't like that. So that's why I stick with my acrylics. Sure, and you're right. Control is difficult with the oils. You have to have a process, and also I don't want the colour to go muddy. So you do have to wait for it to dry. I know it is painful. 3 whole months is a long time, but if you know how to do it, you can do it. It is possible. So I think that period of 3 months, that means that I can start on something new as well. So there's 8 paintings as part of this because I get bored quickly when I'm done or I do something. And that's what made me actually decide to do 8, is that it was about keeping myself busy, really. So I just kept adding to them as well. So I'd put a square on or measure something out. And that process of adding to paintings is part of it, because I look at a painting and think, well, I've got this idea, but I can't put it on here because it'll be too much. So I have to express that idea somewhere without messing up another painting. So then I'd do something, then go back and look at it and think about, do I add to this? So for me, it's a kind of an ongoing process. So it is a different way of working, the way that I do it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about when I came up to you in London, Rubbena, you'd had slipping of the paint with the masking tape, and you were like, this is never really, I've never really allowed this to happen before, and typically I would probably start again, but with oils, you haven't always got the luxury of time. So yeah, that was really interesting for you as well, a bit of a change within your practice.
Yeah, I was really annoyed that the paint kind of slipped, to be honest. It made me annoyed and it upset me a little bit. But I realised that you can't fix oils, can you? You know, if you try, it's going to make it worse. So really, it was late at night when that happened. And I just thought, okay, this is a good time for me to just leave it and go to bed now, step away. And then I came back in the morning and I looked at it and I thought, okay. And I asked other people kind of, what do you think? And he said, oh, it looks good. And I said, well, this is kind of, damaged really. And my kids who were with me said, no, it's not at all. So, and maybe it's even a representation of the fact that sound for a deaf person is not perfect. Maybe we have that same kind of slippage in what we experience through our ears. So that's about acceptance, really, and finding meaning in a mistake. It helps me to accept that as part of the work.
Yeah. Emily has asked in the chat, why is it called Protected by Veils? Because we haven't actually explained that yet. So, and I guess I can do a little bit. So basically, I went to London and was flicking through Rubena's books, and the Evil Eyes and Protected by Veils were on two separate pages, but felt like a flow of thought, even though they weren't. I think they were written at different times. And we talked a lot about evil eyes in different cultures and what that meant. And then we also just talked about being protected, like who Rubena's protected by, who as an art, like who artists in a wider context are protected by, who me as a curator, who I'm protected by. So there's a bit about that, but maybe Rubbena could talk about, I mean, it was a long time ago, but why you wrote that or what you were thinking when you wrote that.
Writing for me, I think, is a link to frustration about my situation and about the world and how I respond to society. And I can remember growing up within my family talking about shame and the shame that's attached to being deaf and God's punishment on parents is having a deaf child. And that's a lot for a deaf child to carry, but deaf and disabled children in some cultures do experience that, and they're also very protected as well. And I think that for me, as part of my family when I was small, when people would come around, my family would kind of go, "This is Rubbena," and then take me away, perhaps as a protective measure. But I think it's about people to kind of think about this concept of the evil eye. Is it shame or is it jealousy or is it rage? But for me, it was about how I was protected as being raised by parents in the culture that I was raised in. I was well protected and looked after as a girl as well. I wasn't allowed to go out and socialize or, meet strangers who weren't family. I was very much protected and kept away from all that. So I had to struggle and work my way out of it. I think I actually have the privilege of being deaf, of being somebody who experiences the world visually and needing that. And I think ultimately my family allowed me that because I needed that. So they were very strict on what time I could go out and what time I had to come back. But that protective element was an important thing for me. And there's a tie in there with the veil that women wear. So when strangers come to the house, they might, have to put a veil on even in the house to protect themselves. This concept of the evil eye watching again in a protective measure against that. So it was really about my experience growing up and how the evil eye watching me felt like an everyday experience, about not being safe in society or society's judgment that I am wrong, or conversations that I have about work when people tell me that I'm not right. For me, writing is a therapeutic measure really to get all that out, which is why it was in the books that you saw.
Thanks, Rubbena. Does anyone else have any questions? Just put in a question in the chat from Gabriella. Looking back at the process of this exhibition and these paintings, what do you feel that you have grown, or have you had new realizations?
Sure. I think when Caitlin came down to visit and we went to the storage place that she spoke about before, there were kind of lines, lots of lines and things that I kind of noticed on the work that I hadn't realized about. I think I quite like lines, but and also actually on the audiogram, you know, that's a collection of lines, isn't it? So for me, looking back across the process, I think it helped me realize that every artist has shapes or colors or markings that they prefer and become their almost trademark that is unique to them. I've tried to get rid of the lines. I've really, really tried, but they keep coming back. So it's like, oh, I've done lines again. Okay. So I think it's maybe because a lot of my family listened to a lot of Bollywood music when I was growing up. So that kind of the beat is quite strong. And maybe the lines, I think, for me represent that kind of rhythm and that constant rhythm. But I don't know, maybe that's where it's from. Maybe it's my translation of that vibration into a visual form as lines. But I'm not really sure where it's from. But maybe it's also about order and process and structure and how that helps me to plan my everyday, very busy life. So maybe those lines represent structure. Maybe they represent planning for the next day. I need to do this and this and this and this. So maybe it's about processing quality of the painting and how things change as well. But maybe it's also about a firmness and a foundation. And I've talked a little bit about being brought up with shame, and maybe it's about the process of working through and lessening that. I'm a deaf Muslim woman. I have to be quite careful within the community. There's a concern for me because I've been protected about exposing aspects of myself and my life. So that process and that structure strengthens me to be able to do what I do and work in that way.
Sort of on from Emily's question and what you've just said, the exhibition was nearly called Order and Chaos, or something along those lines, because that again was a word that kept coming up in your sketchbooks quite a lot, which was really interesting. But the other thing that might have actually gone out on social media once or twice, but it's definitely in the catalogue. We realised that you'd made audiograms for your degree, I think it was, or just after you'd graduated, but a very small version of your own audiogram at that time. And it felt like, to me, looking through your work, you just kept doing that grid-like thing.
Yeah, so going back to 1996, 96, that was that work that you're talking about, Caitlin.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, sorry,
it's interesting to just see that I brought that back, that theme coming back again.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Oh, just seeing in the chat there a question. Just talking about the audiogram, you are right to say, yes, it was 1996 when I first did that. It was an installation of a very, very big maze, lots of colours. And within the maze, you'd kind of walk into this maze and there was metal outside and there was lines that you could, sort of bars that you could see through. And it was quite hard to get inside. But the audiogram had some speech that I'd sort of translated into visual sound waves. So that was those sound waves, the imagery of those was overlapping with the audiogram. So yeah, I realise now, linking back to all those years ago and creating that. So the lines, the very jagged lines that were present on that were my audiogram, and there was kind of stretched veils as well. They were stretched open and had been sort of hammered on, so you couldn't get through them because you're not allowed to bypass the veil in my culture. You have to go a different way. So there was photographs that had been cut out and stuck in a kind of a mash together. So it was a representation of the noise of the community. But for women, there's that, and then there's the other kind of darker side of them being absent or invisible, really. So there was a metal in that installation because it was quite cold, and the title was Mute Culture. So that was back in 1996. So yes, I'm linking back to that previous work all these years on now.
Yeah. But the question in the chat again is from Gabriella, is does art feel freeing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a hugely important thing. If I can't make art, I can't be myself. It means that I am free. It means that I am living in the world. It means that I can survive, really. Life is complex and confusing. Everyday life, there's a mishmash of things to deal with, sound and everything else. And art is my way of expressing that, and it is my language. It's hugely freeing and really important for me.
I remember us talking, it must have been last like June, July, when you just moved and you moved your studio into your new house. And it's now in the conservatory. And I remember us talking about light because in your old studio you had artificial lighting, but now it's in a conservatory. You have to sort of go with the actual natural light almost always. And I found that really interesting. Like the way, however you described it at the time, was just like just basically working with the light, and that felt really freeing to me at the time.
Yeah, light is really important because without it, I don't know what's happening with the color. I don't really know what the emotion is without that. And then, so also when it gets darker now, I feel like I have to kind of wind down and stop. Before, in my studio, my old house, I had 100-watt light bulbs, so it was massively bright. Everything was really bright. I wouldn't know what time of day it is. I would just maybe realize that I was tired, check the time and think, oh yeah, okay, maybe it's time to go to bed. But in the new studio with the natural light, as it gets darker, I can't work. There comes a point when I'm just making rubbish. So it's very different, and it kind of, it's quite odd, really. But it doesn't always work that well. So what I'm finding is that I'm working early in the mornings now, whereas before I could do work at any time, but I'm capitalizing on the light as it is naturally now, working more in the morning, and I think it actually quite suits me. So I'm learning. It's a smaller space as well, so I'm having to work out ways to manage the space that I have. Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat from Becca that says, "Hi Rubbena, after working for so long on this exhibition, what is next for you in your art?" This is my favorite question, Becca, because I ask her all the time.
Oh, no. I'm waiting for opportunities, and when I get one, that's what I'll do next. I'm still painting. I'm already thinking about a new installation. I have it in my head, and So I want to crack on with that. But the issue is money with that, of course. So whether that will progress quickly or slowly, I don't know. If I'm able to secure some funding, I'll be able to do that. But I think, to come back. I'm hugely grateful to Wales, but I think I need to go back to England and exhibit there, because it's been a long, long time since I have done that. So I need more opportunities to exhibit my work in England. I think working in the mainstream, it's a challenge. So there's always that challenge, but I am still painting.
Amazing. We've got time for one quick question, if anyone has one.
Oh, just to quickly say, well, I hope we've inspired you, Ina, that you can be the solo focus and that you can be the center of attention. And, just to thank you enormously for the insights that you've shared with both Caitlin and myself over the last period. I mean, I've known you for 3 years now, and you've taught me a lot. I have to say, you've taught me a lot. And I've really enjoyed our friendship growing. I mean, you as a role model within Wales is incredible. And I'm hoping now that your exhibition will inspire other artists in Wales that are deaf to put themselves forward for opportunities in the way that we've highlighted with you. And yes, I mean, going back to Emily's question about exhibition opportunities, it's shocking that it's taken so long for you to have a solo show, and that embarrasses me. But I'm very, very proud to have gone with Caitlin. I've also really enjoyed watching, and I think when people see the catalogue, they'll be able to appreciate this. That there's an in-depth interview, there's conversations, there's probably another level of investigation into your work that hasn't happened for a long time. So yeah, really pleased that we've been able to do that. Thanks to Arts Wales for all of their support.
Yeah, okay. And I'll also sort of almost close off before handing to Rubbena, but I've had an amazing time working on this project for a year. It's becoming a curator. It's been a really interesting journey, and about 3 years ago, I worked on a project that was then called Deaf Together and is now called Deaf Gathering, and that was the first time I met Rubbena. And what happened there was I am so lucky to now be trusted by lots of deaf artists, because I've worked with lots of them on that project and projects like this one. So I'm so grateful for your trust, Rubbena. It's been amazing to work with you. And there was one point where I knew we'd got it. We were installing, and our technician, me and Rubbena were moving around the 8 paintings, and our technician just sort of stood against the wall and was like, this is like a performance, because we weren't speaking to each other. I don't know if we had an interpreter at that point, but anyway, we were just moving around each other, and I was like, oh yeah, I realized we'd sort of got into sync a little bit. And so it's been really amazing to work with you. And just want to say thank you to everyone for coming tonight and everyone who's gone to see the exhibition. I also wanted to flag one thing. Kate, who is still in the room, there's a BSL tour next Saturday. Jane, you might have to remind me of the time, with Kate Evans in the gallery.
It's May the 31st to 2:30.
There you go. And that's it.
And thank you. It's been a brilliant experience working with everybody here. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Yay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. There's some well dones and thank yous and applause.
I'm putting a link to more installation shots in the chat. Okay. And then also, if you follow us on that website, that's where you'll see the catalogue, and also there's going to be advertising of the BSL tour and all the rest of it. But yeah, thanks, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
I'll stop recording.